Hello and welcome everyone to today's episode of Wolves Fancast. It's me, Rich Hobbs, of course, and I'm joined by my good friend Sam Pickering. Sam, apart from the fireworks firing off behind you at the moment, how's everything with you, mate?
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for having me on, Rich. Everything's good. If you do see any flashing lights, I'm in Birmingham. There's fireworks going off. It seems pretty much non-stop at the moment today. So I apologise in advance if you hear that. Everything's good. Everything's good. That life as a Wolves fan is pretty good at the moment, especially still haven't quite come down, I think, from the Albion win. It's occasionally going back to it every other day, at least watching it on watching the Wolves highlights.
You know what? That was something I was thinking about when I was sort of scribbling up some notes for today's show. Is that we've always sort of like, forgotten about the Man United game, and if mentally it's gone Albion, Chelsea today. It's like, it doesn't matter, which I think kind of just shows how monumental it was against the Albion and even against Chelsea as well, because like 4 goals away from home at Chelsea doesn't happen very often.
Phenomenal results. Especially after the Man United game, there's 2 types of Wolves that can show up to this Chelsea game. There's the ones that their heads will drop, and they may ship another 4 goals. Our record at Stamford Bridge wasn't fantastic in the first place, and Chelsea had very good home form going into it. So we could get spanked again, or we could just react like we have done a lot this season and spank them. And that's exactly what happened. We showed up, and I think Neto and Cunha in the form they're in, I don't think anyone wants to play us at the moment, especially Brentford.
No, I mean, Brentford, this should be, on paper, fingers, toes, and anything else crossed, like a 3-point game for Wolves. We've played them quite a lot recently. Let's be honest. It's like
4 times in, was it 4 times in like 45 days or something like that?
Yes. It's just over 6 weeks since we initially played them, and we've not lost to them yet. Obviously, we had the draw in the Cup. You could argue that, well, we're down to 10 men. Maybe that impacted. And in one of the games, of course, we got several assists from Nathan Collins as well. But yeah, Brentford have really struggled this season. And it feels like they've just not quite been able to progress. I mean, at the moment, they're 15th in the league table. But with games in hands, and obviously where Everton are at as well, they're teetering, aren't they, in terms of that relegation battle over the next 15, 16 games come the end of the season.
Yeah, they're definitely looking over their shoulders, and if they haven't been for the last month or so, then they definitely need to be, because I know that Ivan Toney's back, and I know that he's been a huge miss for them this season since he's been suspended, and Brian Mbeumo I know has been a huge miss for them as well, and they've been lacking a lot in the attacking department. But recently Mpay stepped up to the plate, and 5 goals in 5 games. I think he'll be chomping at the bit to get another goal against us, because I think he's already scored. I think 2 of those 5 and 5 were against us.
Because literally we've been playing against, isn't it?
They must be sick. They must be sick of us, I think. So they're going to be really desperate to get a result tomorrow. So and like I said, this isn't Ivan Toney in the Brentford team now. It's a different beast, and we shouldn't just consider this a formality. I mean, I still back us to win, but I think they're fighting for their lives. Even in February, they're still fighting for their lives, and they'll be going for 3 points.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 players I sort of wanted to cherry pick out of there were Ivan Toney and Neal Mpay, because with Neal Mpay, is he just trying to be this era or this league's like absolute heel? And the only way I think I can replace him is like Jamie. Jamie Vardy had that like shithousery streak. Like, it wasn't all the time, and it wasn't, I guess, publicised as much. But like, I remember him scoring against us once, and him doing like a howl celebration.
Yeah,
and I sort of felt like Neal Mpay's got that in him, but would do something even worse.
Yeah, he's got a mean streak. He's got a mean streak about him. And, you're right about the Vardy comparisons are fair. I mean, except I think Vardy has the technique to actually back it up.
Yes, yes.
I know Mpay is in form at the moment, but I think that'll come crashing down soon enough. But you're right; it's all mind games. He's trying to, last week it was Kyle Walker, the week before it was James Maddison. Who's he going to rile up at Wolves? I was
trying to work out like which Wolves player is most likely to lose their call. The only thing I could think of in a hypothetical world would be him scoring and then doing the Kuna celebration. That might be my bet. Might be my bet of the week.
That's a shout, and I think that would wind a lot of people up. But I think it wouldn't matter because I think Cunha will just bag 2 anyway, and he'll just claim it back.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a sort of celebration where, because the shoe's on our foot. Does that work as an analogy? Because your shoe would be on the other foot. Anyway, because we're in the ascendancy at the moment, actually we get the bragging rights. But I feel like if I was an opposition fan and a player was doing that in my stadium, I'd want them gone. I'd want them to be broken. So that does strike me as a very Neil Mpay thing to do. Or that might just be like, it could just be his new thing, because obviously, he copied James Maddison's celebration. His new thing might be just copying slightly unique goal celebrations to wind up opposition. But as you say, it does rely on him scoring consistently, which
I think
is forte at this level.
I think James Maddison said it best, didn't he? That the only reason Mpay does this is because he hasn't got enough goals to get a celebration of his own. So he has to just keep nicking everyone else's. So whether it's the Cunha doing that, or whether it's the Neto been doing that recently. I mean, that's quite a generic one anyway. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's specific to Neto or not, but I don't see that very often. So that could be very one.
That could be it, I think.
But I think he'll have to get out of Dawson's pocket, I think, if he wants to do that.
Well, you can see someone like Dawson, I think, from earlier games that we've played, Dawson going quite heavy-handed in the first half against
Let him know he's there. Yeah, remind him.
I feel like it. And, we've had a great comment from Mike Evans, his regular contributor. Hey, guys, our defence needs to be on it tomorrow. And I think so that kind of twofold in terms of, Tony, now that he's back, because it doesn't feel like he skipped a beat after being unavailable for a while now. And obviously he scored that free kick recently where he kind of
slightly controversial, but you can't argue with the finish. He's a very good set piece taker as well. So the comment's absolutely right. I think 6 goals shipped now in 2 games. Against Chelsea. I know it's Chelsea and Man United, but Brentford have shown us in the games we've played against them, they know how to score goals against us. And we need a response. We need to build from the back. I trust our attack to go to pile forward and really put a lot of pressure on the Brentford defence. And I'd bag us to get at least two goals tomorrow. But we need to make sure that we really shore up.
I think I'm curious to see if he does change anything sort of particularly at the back, because that back line has been solid. It doesn't feel, it almost feels a bit mad that you say we conceded 6 in 2, because it doesn't feel like a unit that's flooded in goals, but it has happened. It does need to be looked at. And even if you look at the Chelsea ones, obviously we conceded early on. It was a good move, but there were still potential points we could have squeezed the gaps a little bit more. Then to concede from a corner, it's a lack of concentration when when you're 4-1 up. Essentially, it doesn't take an awful lot to get punished at this in the Premier League, does it? Even against a team like Brentford's a bit harsh, but actually any opponent in this division can, punish you on a whim if you're not careful.
Yeah, well, the worrying thing about the set pieces is that I think before the Man United game, I don't know if this is correct or not, but I don't know if we'd actually conceded from a corner all season. I might be wrong, but I believe we had a very good record at least. or one of the teams with one of the least amount of goals conceded from a corner or a set piece. But the United game, there was a lot of corners and set pieces that they missed good chances on. Casemiro must have had about 3 or 4 headers that could have gone in. And the Chelsea game, like you said, Thiago Silva getting a header, and Brentford are very set piece heavy. They like to lump it into the box. So, yeah, we need to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes that we have done in the last couple of games. I know Albion had a few, they like to get crosses into the box. We dealt with them admirably, but we just need to make sure that we're back on to that level of consistency. I back Dawson and Toty and Kilman, especially, to win most aerial battles. So just make sure that they find that form again and don't make the same mistakes that they have been in the last couple of games.
Yeah, and I think the concentration one's a biggie for me, and particularly Brentford, because one of the things they are very well known for is their ability to get in that second ball and to keep the play. They're very strong from set pieces, from the initial delivery, but when it comes out, they're very good at recycling it and keeping players forward. And somehow Neil Collins scored against us a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't, from memory anyway, it wasn't like it was from direct from the corner.
You're rolling back the years again saying Neil. I feel like
it's going to be one of these days, guys, isn't it? We're scoring goals against
back in 2008. Yeah,
I'm just going to go for Collins. But anyway,
N Collins.
N Collins. But actually, it's because he stayed in the box and they kept it alive, and it only takes a moment or one player not on assignment to not pick somebody up. So it's going to be key, and hopefully someone like Toty Gomes is buoyed this week after signing a new deal that takes him up to Wolves until 2029. In my head, he signed a 10-year deal. I will be brutally honest. When I hear 2029, he's basically signed like a Francesco Totti lifetime contract. It is not a 3-year extension on what he's already on.
Yeah, it's not exactly Mudryk, is it? Chelsea. There's Chelsea contracts, but you're right. I think
he's such a lifetime away.
I know, but no, guy, he deserves that so much. He's been a breath of fresh air since he came in a couple of years ago. I think it was he started against Southampton for his debut. When we were a bit of a loose end in defence, and he's been fantastic, and a well deserved extension on his contract. And if he's a Wolves lifer, then I'd be very happy to see him at the heart of our defence for many, many years to come.
Would you describe him as the next Roman Sace?
Ooh. What do you mean in terms of commitment to Wolves? Or
I think a bit of everything, to be honest, because you've got positionally left-footed defender, very passionate, heart on their sleeves, so quite vocal and all of that, but also someone who, depending on the tide at Wolves, you could see him not being in the team if they bring somebody else in, but then also being a very good backup and then winning his place back. And you say actually staying at Wolves for a significant period of time as that, 6, 7 out of 10 kind of guy who you said, I know I can rely on him. And I think we almost had a very small gap when Sace left, that we missed that bit of leadership, that bit of presence on and off the pitch. And it was the right time for Sace to move on, don't get me wrong. But it feels like this season, Gomez has stepped up that bit more. Be a bit more, even more be more commanding than being a good defender, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he's grown in confidence so much. I think it was more noticeable last season. I think when he got a lot more of a regular player, and even when he was asked to step in at left back, when we had Lopetegui and we were playing 4 at the back. Now I remember watching him against Villa at home, and he scored the 1 goal to win it, and he was having the game of his life, and he was at left back, and he was just making marauding runs down the left like a proper wing back. So he's got that versatility like Saïss. I mean, Saïss wasn't obviously a wing back, but he could play centre mid, he could play centre back. He was a threat from set pieces, just like Toty is. And I think one thing that I always take away from Saïss's time at Wolves, even though obviously he was a fantastic footballer, And I do, I don't know if we should have actually got rid of him, but we seem to be doing okay now. But I think Saiss off the pitch was a real character and good for morale in the dressing room. A captain, a leader, like you said. Toty is clearly well liked by the team. Watching all the behind the scenes stuff that Wolves give us, you can always see that Toty he's always smiling. He's radiating good energy, and like the comment says there from Mike, he's got such amount of passion. Even when he doesn't score, he's always like the first. He's doing the was it the Sam Ricketts Connor Cody that jumped when you saw everyone? That's Toty, and that we need more of that. And he's such a good character, and he fills that size role quite nicely.
Yeah, I think for him, and this sort of 5-year deal, I think it's really good for everyone because you get. He's not had that many bad games for Wolves, Gomes. He's looked a bit clumsy or clunky, but he's not had many howlers or really, really bad games. So, in theory, I think that there's still another level to his game potentially as he matures. But he's already at this level now after not an awful large amount of games at this level. So, if somebody big does come in for him, then fantastic. We spent next to nothing on him.
Yeah,
he's improved. He plays Portugal, and gets a big money move elsewhere. Fantastic. If he stays at this level, perfectly okay. As you sort of said, that Roman Saiss, leader, big character, and we've tied him down for half his career. Fantastic. If Wolves then, let's say under Gary O'Neill, we make it into top 7 or whatever, and we improve, and there's almost a level of like continuous improvement, and we go actually of all the positions, centre half, left centre half, the area we need to improve, or they go let's move Max Kilman, then he's shown that he can play at this level. So even if a promoted team goes, what we need is an out of favour centre half from a team who's already kind of been there and done it, then we'll get again more than enough money for him. So I think it's really shrewd, and obviously he's had a couple of years left on his deal, and I don't know. For me, it sort of screams that he was probably on not a lot of money and has gone from playing sporadically, rotationally, to being one of your first names on your team sheets at the moment.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming part of it is reflective in that as well, and I've got no issue with it because actually, out of the three centre halves, for me, he's Kilman starts because he's captain, and then Gomes starts for me. Dawson is almost that third one, partly because of age and anything else. So it's good that he's got a agreement with the club that warrants it for me. So fingers crossed he continues to improve for Wolves. And I guess in terms of the lineup and sort of the squad as a whole, we are kind of a bit blessed. And you look at the bench from the Chelsea game actually, and it gets very weak at the bottom end of it. So we had Bentley back at goalkeeper, Doty, the Bueno boys, who are related now, I say it like that. Tommy O'Doyle, if you ask Dave Edwards, Bellegarde, Vent, Griffiths, Traore, and Fraser. It drops off, but thankfully, Gary O'Neill said in his pre-match press conference today that Hwang and Traore are both available. And I just thought, fuck me, that was going to be so good to have, particularly Hwang, when you look at the young forwards on our bench in terms of Fraser in particular. And it sounds hard. It's not meant to be a dig at those younger players, but to have some, whether it's Sarabia or Bellegarde or Hwang, having that extra level of ability at this point of time, it is definitely a good thing for us.
Yeah, if Hwang can find, I mean, I know he had a decent tournament in the Asia Cup, but if he can find his form that he had before that tournament and bring it back to this weekend and beyond, it's a mouth-watering prospect of having him, Neto, and Cunha up front, because it just screams goals to me. And I think even though Hwang's been away, we've done very well without him. And I'm not saying, I don't know if he walks back into the team. I wouldn't start him tomorrow personally. I think bring him off the bench. Maybe if we're chasing the game, or maybe if the Cunha or Neto need a rest because they're running their asses off. I think once he finds that form again, it's going to be such an exciting time, even more exciting time than it is now to be a Wolves fan. But like you said, with the striking options we've got on the bench since Fabio Silva and Kalajdzic have gone out on loan, it's left us a bit threadbare up front. But I'm sure the youngsters wouldn't mind hearing the fact that it's good to have that experience on the bench. And I don't. And with Fraser's, Fraser playing against Brentford, and was it Brentford where he scored? Yeah, he was.
I was going to say. I say obviously he's literally scored against the opponents, and both teams played pretty much a full strength team.
So I mean, he'll be chomping at the bit to get another go at them, I'm sure. But with Hwang back, that's going to give us just another extra level of confidence. We've been quite lucky with injuries as well. It reminds me actually of like the early Nuno days when I think we had a full squad for most of the season. Very rarely got injured, and then things sort of tailed off a bit in the following years. But recently we've got back. I don't want to jinx it or anything, but just if we can keep the squad firing fit, then it's the options are fantastic for us.
Yeah, the fact that the only rotation seems to be happening at the moment is due to either circumstance through suspension or whether O'Neill wants to make a tactical decision. It doesn't feel like it's a slight of a player and therefore more injuries, which has been a big issue for Wolves in the last couple of years post Nuno's first couple of seasons. That we were getting players who were getting injuries. Look at even like Pedro Neto, and the fact that he had a hamstring injury in the middle of his season effectively. But at this moment in time, it's not been like 2 or 3 niggling injuries, and it's not been across the team. And even having players like Bukayo Traore back as well, where we've gone through a spell where either Lamina was unavailable or Gomez was unavailable, and there wasn't an awful lot of options on the bench. And I think having that extra, effectively 4 midfield options now, and unfortunately, just again out of sheer circumstance, isn't it, that Traore's effectively the 4th choice. But I think he's still shown enough in his time at Wolves that he might be able to be a more than solid option for us in the second half of the season.
I think there's definitely something there with Traore. He's shown in the limited opportunities he's had, he's shown flashes of, the Premier League quality. I look back when we've needed to shore up defence a bit. He's been that enforcer in the middle. He'll just run and chase after a ball. Whereas in contrast to someone like Tommy Doyle, well, I'm not actually sure what I would call what kind of midfielder he is. He's just a fantastic ball playing midfielder. I think is that kind of, which Traore probably isn't. Traore's, he'll get stuck in. And don't get me wrong, Tommy Doyle will get stuck in as well. But I think his qualities are more, on the ball, spraying out passes. And, I'll echo every Wolves fan sentiment. If we don't sign him at the end of the season, something has gone horribly wrong, because he'd be the bargain of the century.
I mean, I'm assuming the only reason we didn't sign Tommy Doyle in January was due to FFP. Because in my head, it would have just been I don't think any Wolves fan, and again, it helped that we beat the Albion 3 days prior. I don't think there was a lot of uproar that we weren't making signings in January, because not a lot of people were. I did think it was a shame in a way that the club didn't just say we've activated the the permanent transfer clause in the deal.
Well, did we
And
do that
just-
with someone else once? Like, was it Hwang actually? Where we
yeah,
have him
we
on
did,
loan?
we did. Yeah, we did it with Hwang. We did it with Johnny as well.
Johnny, yeah, and we signed him at the end of the season. But if we didn't, at the end of the season, like we said, if we didn't sign him and trigger that clause, then we really missed out on an opportunity there.
And it's sort of like if he's costing us 5 million, if I was trying to work out how much would I want Wolves to pay for Tommy Doyle if we didn't know the price, if that makes sense, and but you can clearly see, that if Wolves spent 15 million on him after this season, hypothetical word, you go, okay, yeah, that seems fair.
Yeah, I mean, you think a young English player who's played for Manchester City, he's I don't know, he's only young, isn't he? So he's got so many years ahead of him. He's got his best years ahead of him, and that's frightening because he's fantastic at the moment. He's doing fantastic at the moment. But yeah, 4.5 million for that, you'd be thinking that's what you pay for someone who's like coming to the twilight of their career, not the start of it.
I was going to say, like, we're almost about 5 million either, far too early in his career, or a bit late in a way, but like we're not. It's not even like we're paying for the potential, and obviously it was kind of wound up in the Nunes deal as well. I guess it does bring us on to the tricky question of what we think the starting lineup's going to be tomorrow, Sam, because as we mentioned, we've got Hwang and Traore. Personally, again, I'm expecting to see them on the bench. Do we think it's going to be the same lineup as it was against Chelsea? Because, to be honest, I don't know what would change.
I'm a big believer in if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think keep it as it is. The team played so well against Chelsea on Sunday. I don't see why, unless there's obviously an injury or something we don't know, then I'd be very surprised if O'Neill makes any changes. And if Traore and Hwang could come on and shore things up, or try and get another goal, I'd completely understand that. It's just who goes from the bench. I'm guessing it would be like maybe Griffiths and Traore.
Yeah,
they step aside, and that's fine. But I think if the lineup changes at all, I'll be surprised.
Yeah, same. It's been a week since we last played, or 6 days. There's been no accounts of injuries or anything like that. I'm on the same agreement. I know Sarabia can blow hot and cold with Wolves fans, but I think just because Hwang has been out, and it feels ill-deserving necessarily. And he did the same with Aït-Nouri when he could have, in theory, have pulled him straight in against the Albion, and didn't. I think O'Neill seems to be someone who's very much of actually rewarding the players who've been playing previously, and making sure that people like Hwang stay hungry and earn his place back. Really, I would say from international news as well. From Hwang and Traore is Enzo Gonzalez. We hardly knew because he's gone very quiet. Wolves.
Yeah,
he's played in the development squad a number of times, and he had a few appearances on the bench as well. And I do think a lot of people got a bit anxious because he did sort of just disappear in the last month because he was on international duty. But he scored a lovely goal for Paraguay versus Argentina in the
lovely finish, brilliant goal.
Just it was in like the 89th minute as well. Like you look at it and it was like looked like if it was like in the first half, first 10 minutes that he's just caught from napping, but just the acceleration to like burst past the defender in the box and. The very, very cheeky finich.
Cheeky was the word I was going to use. It is pure cheek from that young man.
Like it is of what what I always appealed to me quite a lot about the goal. It was the athletics track around the pitch. You don't see it anymore, do you?
No, I don't know if it's especially in the UK. I think we had a chance with the Olympic Stadium and West Ham bottled it. Didn't they? But no, I rate that. It's a good aesthetic. Takes you back to playing on like an athletics pitch in school. except
exactly.
there's like thousands of seats around you.
Yeah. It's like genuinely like I've got it on in the corner of my eye. Like you can see like the additional athletics equipment just behind the goal as well. It's perfect. I want to learn everything about that stadium if I'm being brutally honest. But we'll say it for another time. Before we kind of look into the weekend fixtures, something else that came out, I guess, in the world of football was the idea of blue cards. So for anyone listening who hasn't seen anything about blue cards,
Where have you
effectively, exactly, not here, Sam, not here. IFAB are proposing to introduce, not initially at the top flight level, to bring in a third disciplinary card that will be for dissent and for cynical fouls. And effectively, a blue card will award you 10 minutes in the sin bin. What are your initial thoughts on it, Sam? Because I've got a few, but I'm kind of keen to hear other people's.
I mean, I don't know. I think when it comes to change and immediate change like this, it's quite a lot to swallow. I think with I'm all for players getting put in their place and disciplined. If they're going to mouth off to the ref for tactical fouls, they should be punished for it. But to be honest, I think yellow cards and red cards would handle that. I don't know. I've seen Premier League managers come out about it and say that many of them aren't fans of it. Maybe it's the idea, something else that they've got to deal with. When a player comes off the pitch for 10 minutes, how that's going to be handled. It could be the threat of change might just be looming and they don't like it. I even remember Paul Merson chiming in about it, and he had a lot of choice words for it and trying to change the game too much. Yeah, Paul Merson being controversial, who knew? But he had a lot of things to say about it. Like it's going to change. We don't need it changing. It's going to slow the game down. If a player goes off, if it's a defender, for example, who gets put in the bin for 10 minutes, then everyone's just going to drop back. It'll kill the momentum. It might kill the game. And to a certain extent, I agree, but it could. But at the same time, it's another tactic, and it would actually be quite interesting to see how it plays out. If you want my personal opinion on whether I would want sin bin cards, I would lean towards more saying no. But at the same time, I guess the game has to develop, and if the trials work out and it's a success, then it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. What do you think?
I think I'm not completely against the idea, and I think football does have a really tricky, and football fans have a really tricky time with change. And when new ideas are implemented, the uproar about anything will have pushback, regardless of it.
VAR was the last one, I think. The last one, or maybe even the additional added time, like 10 minutes added time.
Yeah, and it's difficult because ideas can either get lost in their merit or based on the last idea. And there's a level of like survivorship bias for me when it comes to implementation of change. So no one talks about goal line technology because it's like people will have had the same viewpoints as they do around VAR that they would have done about goal line technology. The only difference is that goal line technology is very precise and it's instant, and it does everything you needed it to do. Like actually, you view it, and no one kicks up a fuss if it's an inch over or under the line because they've seen it in front of them and they know it's empirical. Apart from that Villa Sheffield United one,
I was going to say that's
literally one case, isn't it? In terms of like the sin bin, part of me is for it because it's established in other sports. I agree with it for cynical fouls because I am someone who is quite petty and does think that a lot of the time they should be red cards, not yellow.
Well, it's essentially it's a form of cheating, isn't it? I suppose if you want black and white about it, it's.
But if you're not, because you're not attempting to win the I guess the prime example of the situation is that Bukayo Saka in the Euros.
I was going to say that. Yeah, that's the perfect example.
And for me, that was a red card because Kylian, he's not made an attempt for the ball. He has done something to, to be honest, I thought it was violent conduct anyway. But actually, even if he'd have just come behind, swiped his legs, no attempt for the ball. But if you're not attempting for the ball, aren't you just basically kicking a person?
Well, yeah, it's attacking a person. I don't know how going nowhere for the ball. I don't know how complicated that needs to be. Yeah.
So, and they'll say, but they'll get awarded a red card. You go, well, hang on, that's not a free match ban for swiping someone's legs from behind. Isn't the same as headbutting someone or throwing an elbow or denying a goal scoring opportunity, whatever. So I get that there needs to be some form of middle ground. And I also think for, let's say, I'm trying to think of who, like a shithouse who's quite relatively known, like a Fabinho from a couple of years ago at Liverpool, for example, who, a player who's got those dark arts in them. And even João Gomes, I'm going to keep it topical for Wolves, would that deter them from doing it again? Or at least give them suitable punishment to know, actually, you know what, you've stopped a very clear break in play by, impeding the opponent with 0 attempt for the ball. You've got to sit out for 10 minutes. And I'll go, actually, you know what, that might stop them in a way. From a logistical point of view, I'm not a big fan of it because it means that you're probably going to have players, if they've been going for 35 minutes, let's say, or half an hour, or you're in the 70th minute of the second half, and then you make them stop for 10 minutes to then start again, I'd be curious about the injury rate, what would happen from that. And I know, like rugby, they've got like the bikes and stuff to keep their legs warm, but that's one of the few things I do have that does make me uneasy about the idea of a sin bin.
It's the sports science degree in you coming out, isn't it?
I know I'm making it. It's been 10 years. I might as well get some use out of it.
Who'd have thought 10 years ago when we graduated we'd be putting it to use?
Exactly. We've just been waiting. I'm telling you, in Penta Jane Morgan. If only we know.
Shout out to 39 PJM.
I know. Represent. I was going to take on a real digression about me keep getting spam phone calls asking if I still live there. I'm like, no, not in a decade. 10 years and 20 grand's worth of debt later. I've completely lost my trail of thought.
We've lost track now.
Yes, sports science. Yes. So
the fitness of players when they're off the pitch.
Yeah, and like compared to like rugby, which is a slower paced game and naturally has that interval aspect worked into it, players are doing a lot more accelerating in football. So I am surprised that has not been a thread line throughout the idea of sin bins. But I do think there is merit for something to clamp down on it. Because I think ultimately most laws and ideas implemented in the game have tried to make it better for either spectators or the players.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think the people making these decisions are trying to make the game slower or more boring. They're trying to do it for maybe fairness and entertainment. I think the two of the things. In this case, it's 100% fairness, and yes, I think these tactical fouls, shithousery, as we say, needs to be looked at a bit more specifically. And where we always say like a yellow card isn't enough, but a red card is probably too much. Why not an orange card? Maybe they've missed the trick by not having an orange card instead. But that could be it. But it's funny you say about people like João Gomes or Fabinho is the example you used earlier. Someone who's perhaps a master of the dark arts. I was looking at a list earlier, And I think it was Mario Lemina's had the most yellow cards, I think, this season for tactical fouls.
It doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
4. So he'll probably be shaking at the thought of this.
Exactly. And part of me goes that they are professional athletes. They will basically do anything within the laws to win. And if that means stretching the laws to their limits, then in their heads, mentally, it's like, yeah, of course I'll do it. If it is something that I am able to do that's going to give us a advantage to win the game, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah, especially if it's a team like Brentford, who, like I mentioned earlier, are fighting for their lives and will need any point they can take. They'll do that, And if it all comes down to it at the end of the season, a team like them or maybe Crystal Palace or Everton, who need maybe a point or so to stay up, it'll come back to stuff like this. And a point you made earlier about the fitness, we better hope that Neto never goes off on a card because his hand, we can't take any more pain for his hand. we need him just running all the time just to keep the momentum up.
They will have to invent almost like wrap around things for his legs just to keep them warm and heated. But yeah, because the way I sort of look at it, it's going to sound really daft. It's like taking drugs is bad for sport. Performance enhancing drugs is bad. That's your line. You know what you're not allowed to take. But players will drink Red Bull at 5 to 3, and because that is something that they think is going to help them. That is going to give them more energy. All of that. So it's like that. What amount of caffeine am I legally allowed to have that would not flag? And so they're going to stretch them, they're going to push them. And it's the same with laws within the game as well. Like the amount of players, you see it every time someone takes a corner, where they place the ball to almost outside the D, but isn't outside.
It's stupid anyway. I'll never understand having it just a millimeter outside of the D. Is it going to affect the trajectory of the ball that much?
Is it good? Yeah, it's got to travel an awful way for your worrying about it being, half a football nearer or further away. I don't understand it. I could understand it when it was very when you play on proper grass pitches and the corner flags got dug up and you'd have it almost on the edge because it was less likely to have got hooked up with turf. But most corner areas now, especially at Molineux, it's artificial. Or it's a woven difference, so it's not going to get trod up. No. So it's almost and because because you did it 10 years ago, it just keeps every player does it regardless of whether it works or not. But it's saying players will do it until they are told they can't get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd be interested to sort of see it. I know sin bins do happen. I know it's been implemented within Wolves women and things like that this season as well. So that I know. I think it'll be interesting. What it actually gets defined as. I know we've had a couple of YouTube comments. One from Matt Bradley sort of saying just make the yellow card a sin bin instead of giving another thing to call wrong. And I sort of get that. The only issue is there are so many things you can get yellow cards for.
Yeah, it's what we've been trying to say. That is almost this is the stuff that goes in the orange card category. Like we said, maybe too much for a yellow, but not enough for a red. I mean, if we're I don't know, if we're saying sin bin for time wasting, I think that would rub a lot of people up the wrong way, or maybe kicking the ball away. I don't see that going down very well. But I'm all for players respecting the rules and not just causing trouble for the sake of it. Getting punished by being put in the sin bin for a bit. But
it's for dissent. I find the dissent one really interesting, including dissent in it, because a lot of dissent goes unpunished. We saw obviously last season Lamina getting another yellow card.
Yeah,
and you see it every game now. But free players approach ref, and my immediate reaction of also is, why isn't one of them not getting booked?
That Lamina one seems to have gone by the wayside because I don't feel like that happens anymore. I don't feel like the referee.
It literally happened once.
Yeah, and it happened. It had to be for us, didn't it? I mean, it didn't matter in the grand scheme of things because we won the game, but missing Lamina for a bit at least would have harmed us. But it just seems to have fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, and part of it is referees need to keep up with it. The other side of it, something that kind of occurred to me is like actually the reason why you have a sin bin is in football for those is to literally let the players have time to calm down.
Well, I thought about this.
It treats them like a fucking child, but it is to genuinely
sit on the naughty step. That's essentially what it is, isn't it?
Sit next to your manager, your daddy, effectively.
Think about what you've done.
Yeah, take 10 big deep belly breaths and.
I just can't. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you're mouthing off, if the player is mouthing off to the ref and gets put in the sin bin for 10 minutes, all I'm going to think is he's going to have 10 minutes to think about it, and he's going to come back for more, and you'll get another yellow card, and you'll be off. So I don't. It'd be interesting to see how that works, and players especially who are quick to maybe have a short temper, for example. Some will handle it better than others, I'm sure, but I don't know if I just don't know if that'll work.
Yeah. Another YouTube comment coming from Martin Wolfright. Just if it ain't broke, why fix it? It's a poor refereeing and lack of discipline. That's a problem. And I sort of think you're right with the first point, but actually it is broke because there is poor refereeing in terms of being able to kind of find that having that grey area. And I think the lack of discipline and what we were just saying about the whole dissent thing. Politely. Be an adult, have some level of emotional intelligence, not to just run up to a referee and shout. You don't do it in any other form of life. It doesn't happen in other forms of sport. And I don't understand it because it is such like a trained behaviour to do some of those, crowding around a referee. And
it's a bit toys out the pram, isn't it? And it's you're right. We are sometimes seeing grown men act like children, and it's for no benefit because they're not going to change the decision. If they do, it's a VAR thing. It's not because the player has told them to change your decision.
Yeah, so I know. I think it's going to be an interesting one in terms of because obviously they've announced it. They'll try it at a low level. It's going to be interesting in the next couple of seasons, I think, to see how it progresses. So
we know there'll always be errors with referees. Referees are human. There's good ones, there's bad ones. Everyone has off days. We understand that. We have to understand that. But we can't. I don't think there's any perfect solution to this issue. No. There's always going to be people who are unhappy.
Yeah, so let's see. But it isn't going to be introduced at the weekend. And obviously, Wolves are at home at 3:00 against Brentford. We've got a few other games going on. So early kickoff is Man City versus Everton. Other 3:00 Saturday kickoffs, we've got Fulham, Bournemouth, Liverpool, Burnley, Luton, Sheffield United. That'll be a tasty one. Spurs, Brighton, then the Saturday evening kickoff of Forest, Newcastle. Followed by Sunday, we've got West Ham, Arsenal, Villa, Man United, and Monday, Palace versus Chelsea. Are any of those fixtures sort of sticking out to you, Sam, as interesting ones for either Wolves fans or general footy fans?
I think there's going to be a few eyes. It depends on different ends of the table. So I think immediately Luton, Sheffield United springs out. I mean, I know we're not exactly looking over our shoulders. We're doing okay, but for the teams in and around the bottom 5 or 6, Brentford, for example, they may have one eye on that fixture. It might be around this time of the season where teams start to, maybe start to worry and start to keep maybe one eye on the other results and see how it affects them, because that's essentially a 6-pointer, Luton, Sheffield United, and Sheffield United probably need it more than Luton. But given the fact that Luton are in pretty good form and Sheffield United, haven't got form. That's one that definitely sticks out. The other one for me is Villa, Man United. Man United's obviously, starting to find their feet a bit more recently. That 4-2 win over Newport must have done them a lot of favours because we played them, and then that was obviously devastating for us. But and then they ended up beating West Ham 3-0 at the weekend. So they're back on track. Villa, they made Villa Park a fortress for this season, and they had a bit of a hiccup on Wednesday against Chelsea in the cup, so they'll be looking for a result as well. I think that's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, I'm really torn by that Villa Man United game because I don't really want Villa to win, but I'd never.
Is that the Wolves fan in you speaking, or just?
It is actually, Sam, funny enough.
Really?
But the idea of me wanting Man United to win doesn't sit right with me either. To be honest,
can we get a 0-0 draw or something? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like can somehow both teams lose. You're right. I do think the Sheffield United Burnley games, Luton Sheffield United even, because actually if Luton win that, which their home form is just keeps going up and up and up, being on 23 points after 23 games for Luton, it is phenomenal. And there's no other way of looking at them being on a point a game after 23 games really sets them up nicely to try and get survival. And of course, it kind of drags everyone else down as well. Because they're effective. The opportunity, the likelihood of Brentford. Even if you want to include Palace, maybe as well, but the likes of Brentford, Forest, and Luton all winning is statistically low. But for one of those teams to win, whether it's Brentford against us, hopefully not, whether it's against Forest at against Newcastle at home, potential for them, or Luton at Sheffield United, it really pushes the other two into a relegation quagmire a bit more.
It would really open it up, and I think Luton. I think Luton will get a result against Sheffield United. Kenilworth Road's been a fortress for them the last few months. Now that they've started to establish themselves a bit and impose themselves, I think is the best way to say it in the Premier League. And as we can see, they're the fourth best form team in the league at the moment, behind us and Liverpool and City. But I think Forest definitely needs something against Newcastle. But I think that they blow hot and cold, Forest, for me, as far as I'm concerned. They can put on performance of their lives, or they can be really down in the dregs. I think they will stay up, and I think Luton will stay up as well. I think both of them will be okay, but it'll be tight. Very tight.
Yeah, I sort of think Everton will scrape survival, but it's slightly unfair. Not unfair, but when you consider they've had a 10-point deduction to bit, actually they are clawing their way out. It's not going to be probably this weekend, away to Man City for them. But actually, if you kind of go, well, they're getting enough points on the board consistently, Everton, that maybe they finish 15th tops, then Sheffield United are basically down unless they have a minor miracle. Burnley, same, to be honest. They might get a level of, it won't be as embarrassing as Sheffield United. They might, at least clear 25 points maybe, or at least 20. And then it's out of Luton, you say Luton, Forest and Brentford maybe?
Yeah, but that's what I'm thinking. I was saying, well, if Forest and Luton stay up, who goes down? It could work very well. Yeah. I think Palace downwards I think Fulham will be okay. I can't see them getting dragged into it, but Palace downwards, unless Palace do something about Hodgson's situation at the club, maybe they. I think personally, but if they want to stay up, but anywhere from Palace down are potentially within that bottom three.
I mean, I know Palace are very much on the slide, aren't they? But that minus 14 goal difference, and as far as they're not. Bournemouth have had some drubbings. Palace's goal difference is just some consistently losing games and then not winning by high margins. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I get the other one, which I think might be half an arm for Wolves fans, is if Spurs win, and let's say they win 2-0, and Wolves win, let's say 2-0, that puts us right on level terms with Brighton. And with a cup game coming up against them as well, I think if our benchmark is going toe to toe with Brighton this season, I think, you know what, that's not a bad turnaround.
Well, in the same sort of vein, I'd go for the West Ham Arsenal game is probably one to keep an eye on, because we're 4 points behind them, aren't we? So, you know, they're in the Europa League conference zone. So, you know, we're not far off them. And, you know, Arsenal lost to them earlier this season. They'll be looking to get a result against West Ham. And obviously that win against Liverpool has given them a lot of motivation. So, yeah, same with Brighton and West Ham. There's no reason why we can't aim for that. You know, there's been talk of Europe and, you know, European chances for Wolves. And, you know, it's great to hear that we're in that conversation. But, you know, I just never, I don't want to get my hopes up just yet. But if we can get, if the results, if the chips fell the way they did and the results ended up like with Brighton losing and West Ham losing and us getting a result against Brentford, you know, dreaming is for free, as they say.
Exactly. Well, before we wrap up the show, just a quick one in terms of the competition we've got over on our Twitter page or X page. Sounds weird when you say it like that. But we have a competition for a Icon Sports highlight print following the win against Albion. So the giveaway is, ladies and gents, that if Pedro Neto starts against Brentford, we'll provide one lucky winner with this unframed goal memorabilia print of Pedro Neto's goal against the Albion. All you have to do, and it's really simple, go to our Twitter page. It's pinned at the top. It's in the YouTube description down there, or I say down there below even Sam. Retweet it. Make sure you're following the Fancast. And as an added bonus, you get double entry if you apply with Fuck the Albion. So, really simple, guys. Definitely do it. They're cracking prints. And make sure you go check out iconsportinghighlights.co.uk/collections/Wolves as well. Because if you don't chance your arms at winning, then you might as well try and get one or pay for one and support them. I mean, give you an idea, guys, we've had 122 of the moment enter. So it's up to you guys, but definitely go check it out. We will be back on Sunday to talk about Brentford game and hopefully another Wolves win. Make sure you check out Wolves Fancast on all our social medias. So whether it's on X or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, wherever you want to get you Wolves, lols and trolls, go check us out there. Until next time, though, it's goodbye from Sam.
Thank you for having me, Rich. Really appreciate you having me on. And thank you everyone who's been listening in. And up the Wolves.
Fantastic. And goodbye from me. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.